Hello and welcome to Inner Peace Book Club. We are talking today about feeling confident in your feminine body in chapter 8. So, this is the last chapter of part 2, and let's get started. These are the topics that we're going to talk about today. So, society places so many conflicting beliefs and expectations on us that our relationship with our own sexuality seems doomed from the start. After being subject to our culture's angst around female sexuality, many of us unconsciously look to weight as a way to hide from the sexual attention that has felt and often still feels confusing and threatening. So, in this chapter, we're going to explore how our relationship with sexuality impacts our weight. And let's get started on page 147. Actually, we're going to turn to 148 now. Being a girl in a woman's body. Jessica talks about growing up a tomboy, refusing to wear dresses even when it meant that she had to have another shouting match with her mom. If her brothers didn't wear dresses, then neither should she. I can relate to that. I grew up in an era and a time when we were still wearing dresses to school, clear until I think my sophomore year of high school was when we were allowed to wear pants for the first time. So I grew up wearing a dress. She says the most of my childhood summers I spent running around the woods with my many guy friends. Then suddenly her breasts arrived and ruined it all. One guy friend admitted that some of the boys referred to her as the girl with the boobs and making jokes about her behind her backs. So she says, I hated my body for betraying me, for bringing me all this teasing and weird attention. Unable to make sense of it all, I used food to cope with my anxiety. Hiding behind weight wasn't a conscious decision, but it served me well, protecting me from being objectified and isolated long before I was ready for it. So this pattern of beginning to hide from our newly sensual bodies the moment they start to develop is one that she's seeing repeatedly in clients. Although puberty may seem like a distant memory, those early years of feeling like a little girl suddenly inhabiting a womanly body can have a lasting impact on our relationship with our femininity and our weight. For so many of us, puberty came as a shock. Unprepared for breast, menstruation, and new curves that begin to appear in the mirror, we blame the body for changes that seemed uncomfortable and unsafe. So take a minute to think about how puberty felt for you. Are there events or memories around this time that taught you it wasn't safe to be in a woman's body? If so, tell the story while you tap on it. Feel free to refer back to chapter 5 when we learned how to tap through past events. So this is a good way to begin tapping on things that you may have felt during that time that still bother you today. So when we talk about our bodies, we sometimes got compliments about them, and it became an unexpected trigger. When we haven't been taught how to create a positive relationship with our femininity and our sexuality, any kind of attention, including compliments, can feel profoundly unsettling. While that may seem counterintuitive at first, when we lack body confidence and have struggles with our weight, we often fear any kind of attention because it could lead us to being hurt or humiliated again. And then she talks about a client named Lori who lost 18 pounds while taking her class, and she'd been working on her fear of shining and realized that she stopped wearing an oversized gray jacket that she used to wear, regardless of the weather. Finally, she felt confident enough to leave the gray jacket behind and decided to wear a white sweater with a pair of pants she hadn't been able to fit into. When she left the house, she felt incredible, beautiful, radiant, and full of energy. She was running errands later that day when a man whistled at her and muttered, "Ooh, sexy lady." Feeling threatened by his comment, her whole body immediately became tense. Her panic was so acute that she froze. Unable to speak and unsure how to react, she looked down and quickly walked into a store. Part of her felt disgusted by this man for his comments, but another part of her felt flattered that she, a married woman in her 50s, could still attract attention. When she realized this, she began to feel guilty for feeling flattered. Later that evening, she still felt the burn of his comments, overwhelmed by feelings of shame and confusion. This is how it often goes when we get compliments. We feel flattered and then guilty, and honestly, it just really isn't fair that that we put ourselves through so much over a simple compliment. So she said that Lori reached out to her a couple of weeks later and shared that she was amazed that a single compliment from a random stranger had derailed her entire day. How many of us have had that happen, where something happens and it just messes with our head and we're off the entire day? It's common when we don't allow ourselves to create boundaries with people, which is a topic that we'll explore throughout this chapter. Boundaries are so important. So then she talked about how they tapped on it and she began to feel grounded in her body and in her own power. When we feel panic around unsolicited attention, it's often because we feel powerless over the situation. We're unable to protect ourselves. One comment can lead us to feel frozen and powerless. It's helpful to understand why we freeze. So we're going to talk about next the freeze response. Although Lori didn't freeze physically, she felt emotionally and mentally frozen. The freeze response can take a lot of forms, including feeling physically tense or frozen, holding your breath, agreeing when you disagree, or feeling unable to say no, speak up, or remove yourself from the situation. We see physical manifestations of the freeze response in animals living in the wild. When they're attacked, their bodies will go stiff and they'll stay that way. This is where the phrase playing possum comes from, since the freeze response has been well documented in possums. Because most predators are only interested in killing their prey that fights back and won't eat an animal until they have killed it, the freeze response can be a powerful way for animals to protect themselves. When the attacker has lost interest in the unmoving body, the animal comes out of the freeze response and runs away to safety. Although we often use the fact that we froze to blame ourselves for not doing or saying more, in fact, the freeze response is our body's most primal way of protecting us. It's important to know this so we don't judge ourselves for freezing. When we experience the freeze response in the past, we often fear the future because we feel defenseless around anything and anyone that seems to threaten us, which can include all kinds of confrontations and conflicts. When we tap while focusing on the event where we froze and allow ourselves to feel to really feel what we're feeling, we lessen the need to go into the freeze response in the future. As a result, we can stay grounded and make conscious decisions that serve us. So you can pause this video right now and do some brief tapping on a time when you may have felt the freeze response in the past. Remember several times when you had this response. And if you remember several times when you had this response, that's okay. Start with a memory that isn't very intense. Did you freeze when someone asked you to commit to a project you didn't want to, or treat you in a way you weren't comfortable with? So, and then you're gonna start off with a karate chop, even though I froze when I love and accept myself. And then you're going to tap through all of the points. Before you start, be sure and give it a score, a SUD score between 0 and 10 on the intensity of the feeling. And then tap through the ways that it made you feel uncomfortable. When you finish with that, give it another check-in and to see if it's between 0 and 10. If it's 5 or below, you can move on to positive reinforcements for that. How we interpret compliments. A lot of people don't like getting compliments in any form, especially from men. When a guy whistles on the street, I look down in panic, they say. Excuse me, I'm drinking some water. I get grossed out and feel violated, like they undress me with their eyes. But then part of me likes the attention and makes me feel guilty and ashamed. Being flattered by a compliment doesn't mean that you're asking for it. And it certainly doesn't mean you're at risk for cheating on your partner. So often, we don't just fear the person, but our perceived inability to do anything. In reality, however, when we're grounded in the body, we have more power than we imagine. When someone compliments you, the first thing you notice is your breathing. So that's a key response when you're moving into the fight, flight, or freeze response, is to notice your breathing. If your breathing becomes shallow and strained, your body is most likely having a stress response. So by tapping on an experience where you had this, you notice the change in your breathing, then you can tap on that and return to the calm state more quickly. When Jessica says, when I use tapping to address my own stress response to compliments and attention, particularly from men, I naturally begin reacting to men differently. While I no longer feel panicked by their attention, I also realized that I got very used to feeling uncomfortable when a man compliments me. I began making a conscious effort to notice my reaction and feelings whenever I get attention, and then tap on the experience. Over time, I am able to receive compliments for what they most often are, a well-meaning compliment. Instead of feeling threatened, I can now enjoy them or ignore them. Either way, I feel present and in control. And I want to stress, you can either enjoy them or ignore them. You don't have to give it any power. You don't have to give it any energy. You can just ignore it. That is a response that is appropriate. When is any attention too much attention? Sometimes we can be triggered by compliments from people who aren't threatening. That happened to me one time when my great uncle said, "You look like you've lost weight." I smiled and thanked him, but inside I screamed, "Can we please stop making my body the topic of family conversation?" Many women sheepishly confess to hearing the words, "You look like you lost weight," and thinking, "So you thought I was fat before?" When body image is a massive open wound, even the gentlest touch of a feather can burn. I thought this quote from Jessica was very accurate. We can't control what others say, but when we heal the wound, we can choose to appreciate the soft touch of that feather and enjoy it as a compliment, or simply ignore it. I love that she puts this in several places. It it was in there enough that it made an impression on me. We can ignore it. So, yeah. Let's do some tapping now around receiving compliments, starting with the setup statement. So, um, if you have issues with receiving compliments, give it a number 0 to 10. How intense do you feel it? And then start with the karate chop point. Even if someone notices my weight loss, I choose to feel centered and powerful in my body. Even though, sorry, even though someone notices my weight loss, I choose to feel centered and powerful in my body. Even though, even if someone notices my weight loss, I choose to feel centered and powerful in my body. And then you can pause the video here and keep tapping on your experience around receiving a compliment and see what you can process and clear. Because you want to take the charge, the electric charge, the negative charge, out of receiving compliments, so that they just don't get to you anymore. So yeah, pause it here. We'll continue on. There's that quote. When body image is a massive open wound, even the gentlest touch of a feather can burn. So true. Let's talk about creating healthy boundaries. When we feel uncomfortable receiving attention, that's usually an indication that we haven't been taught how to create a healthy boundary. We all naturally have boundaries, but unless we know them and enforce them, and that's the key. You can have a boundary, but if you're not enforcing it, it's the same as not having a boundary, because people will just continue to step over it when there's no consequence involved. When you don't enforce them, people cross them without much effort. And when they do, we feel powerless and unsafe. As a result, we often blame ourselves and may also turn to weight as a form of self-protection. As women, we're often taught to be quote unquote good girls. Don't upset anyone, don't offend anyone, don't do anything or you'll make it worse, we're told. Scared that we might disappoint or upset someone, we often judge and blame ourselves. We ask ourselves questions like, am I overthinking this or being overly emotional? But that's not it at all. The problem lies in the fact that we've never been taught how to create healthy boundaries, and this allows others to mistreat us. I have a whole course on setting boundaries, and I will try to put that a link to that in on my website with this lesson, so that everyone can take that course. If you signed up for book club, you have access to my website and all of the courses that are there. So be sure and poke around a little bit and take the courses. I've given everyone permissions to access those, including the paid courses. So I'll put the boundaries class in there so you can get a link to it. Whenever you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, the first step is to physically remove yourself from the situation. If it doesn't feel right, say no. No is a full sentence. You don't need to explain yourself. And this is something that I talk to the people I love around me. If you're saying no, you can just say no. You don't have to tell anybody why. You don't have to explain yourself. You can just say no. And if they push it and they want to know a reason why or whatever, all you have to do is say, because I said no. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be mean, but you do need to be firm. It can be helpful to begin tapping while focusing on any fear you have around standing in your own power or standing up for yourself and having a clear voice or boundary. Once you've tapped on that, here's a positive tapping script to help incorporate the new idea. So imagine that you've tapped on not feeling like you're standing in your power. And now we're ready to move on to the second part, and we're going to do the eyebrow point. What I feel is more important, side of eye, than what anyone else thinks. Under the eye, I am aware of my boundaries. Under the nose, and stand firm in my power. Chin, I feel strong and protected. Collarbone, by the power of my own voice. Underarm, by the power of my large presence. Top of head, I am present and in control. Eyebrow, I am a powerful adult. Side of eye, if something feels uncomfortable, I take immediate action. Under the eye, I listen to my inner voice. Under the nose, I don't need to understand my feelings. Chin, I simply trust them. Collarbone, I feel safe and powerful. Underarm, I have a clear voice and a strong presence. Top of head, I feel calm and confident. And after that, breathe it in and exhale. So now we're going to talk about how to use our energy to maintain boundaries. We have an energetic force around us. It's often called our aura or chi, our life force energy. It extends out around our body about the whole circumference of our arms outstretched. So if you outstretch your arms all the way, that's generally how far your energetic field goes. So you can tell by that you bump into other people's energy fields quite often. If you're in the same room with someone, you've probably been in their energy field at least once. So, and that's why you can tell without really knowing why. You can tell when somebody's upset or happy or sad because you feel it. Their energy field bumps into yours and you feel it. So this energy field, your aura, is a powerful tool to enforce your boundaries once you recognize it and learn to use it. As we're learning to be present in the body and create our healthy boundaries for ourselves, it's important to look at how energy can help maintain those boundaries, even when we get more attention than we'd like, or in some other way to feel uncomfortable. Jessica talks with how she works with women to use their energy to maintain healthy boundaries. They often recall a time when they stared someone down or said something that caused another person to retreat in some way. These are all examples of how we can use our energy to maintain boundaries that help us feel safe. I also have a course on using your energy to keep you safe. So put that one in there too. And I encourage you to go and look at them. So energy protection. It's actually a lot more detailed and has a lot more information than is in this book. I wish that she had gone into it a little bit more, but you know what? I did, so I can definitely pass that along to you. She said that I'm often reminded of this when I go for a run. It's always the small dogs that scare me. They often come running towards me with barking so loud that I physically jump out of fright. Big dogs are often a lot calmer and usually don't scare me. I like to keep a visual of the little dogs in my mind sometimes to remind myself that when I need to, I too can be intimidating as those small dogs with the big barks. So be sure that you use your energy. And sometimes it just is a matter of standing and grounding and having a stance that means business, to help someone decide that they need to back down rather than confront you. So take my class on it and then play around with it a little bit and see how it works for you. Your body and love. When we receive attention for having a feminine form, we sometimes create the false belief that the female body must look a certain way to attract romantic love. This is another pressure that we put on ourselves that we really don't need to. So let's look at how true or false this is. Your Tango, which is a love and relationship website, polled more than 20,000 men to figure out what traits initially attracted men to women. It was 0% body fat. Nothing. Zero. The first response was sexual chemistry. That can also go along with this energetic boundary. Chemistry is part of that. The second response was a smile. The third was kindness. The fourth was a sense of humor. Generally, body type was after all of those at fifth place on the list. Your humor, and kindness mean more to men than your body type does. So what about the first place response, sexual chemistry? What is that exactly? Chemistry is an energy, like I just said. Have you ever had the experience of meeting a man or a woman with a strong feminine or masculine energy, and although he or she is physically attractive to you, the moment you get close and begin speaking to him or her, your attraction vanishes because you start to feel their energy. That person may have only commented on the weather, but suddenly you sense some kind of energy that turns you off. What attracts us to people is that spark. We are attracted to their energy. Does this mean that people don't care about looks? Of course not. But it does mean that your energy is far more important than your looks. Okay, let's continue. Our inner guidance comes to us first through our feelings and body wisdom, not through intellectual understanding. When we believe that beauty attracts love and that we're not beautiful enough to be worthy of love, we're also unable to receive the love and affection we so desperately want because we don't feel we're worthy. We may then deflect compliments and numb ourselves to positive attention because we don't feel we deserve it. In other words, by holding on to low body confidence and believing that your body is the only thing that makes you worthy of love, you rob yourself of the love that is all around you. By using tapping to get in touch with ourselves and feel confident in our body, we're able to receive and give love without feeling threatened or unworthy. So, a woman with confidence is hypnotic. A smile is mesmerizing. Presence, openness, a sense of humor, these are all the things that make a woman attractive. We've all experienced the presence of someone who walks in and lights up a room. It's never about their looks, but about their energy. Allow yourself to light up a room by being your most beautiful self. And that's the end of the chapter. Be sure and look on page 160 for tapping scripts for feeling confident in your feminine body. And we will see you in part 3 next week. We're going to talk about moving forward. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is exercise. So until then, keep tapping. Bye now.